Hey Andrew, so today I wanted to cover recent headlines, which is
Yeah.
all around uh it's actually the digital ID theme. This year, around June, we actually mandated that companies need to have age verification, not exposing children to adult content. How do we go about preventing this? Well, we'll get companies to issue an age verification mechanism in their websites just to filter out that children aren't accessing illicit content. Now, on the face of it, seems like a great idea, right, Andrew?
Yeah.
This whole idea of ID verification, are companies responsible enough to hold that ID information in a safe way to ensure that key pieces of information on what you're viewing can't be accessed by hackers and potentially be used as blackmail material for people in the future? I was quite livid at the combination of ID with something like the corn industry. I'm not going to say the P word, right? So I'm just say corn instead. The corn industry. Yes, it's great to filter out children and say, oh, we're protecting them and we'll ensure that adults can only view it. However, what if a corn website was to be hacked and now you can link what someone is watching to their actual ID? Imagine, I mean, Andrew, any ideas on how that could be detrimental?
Well, we've had it before, didn't we? We had it. I can't remember the the website's name when it got hacked, and all of a sudden, all of these people that
Love
were
affair.
members.
There was a love affair
That's
website.
it. That's the one. That's the one.
Yes. So there was a love affair website. Go on, Andrew. Finish your
Yeah,
thoughts
yeah.
off.
So all of a sudden, people's were like, well, people were being blackmailed. You do this, or we're gonna, release this information, etc. But you could just imagine how it could go further than from just the general public. Imagine, how much further it could go with politicians, CEOs, celebrities, sports stars, etc. Because let's face it, everybody looks at corn every now and then, right?
What is it? So I've got the web
That's it, Ashley.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
no.
the one. That's the
Ashley
one.
Madison. It was an affair website where literally people would go there, they'd pay, and there was meant to be anonymity, and you were allowed to have your affairs and whatnot. And this was in 2015. The company would previously charged £12 for a full delete to delete all your experience. Turns out they kept
Yeah.
the data, and it was a complete lie. It was revealed that even though the company was saying we do not retain your data and we eliminate it, etc., they actually kept hold of it. And it makes sense. Andrew, we've both worked in sales in companies where people opt out of communications, and you still need to keep their data in order to ensure that you don't communicate with them again.
Correct.
So people
Yeah.
go, please delete my data. It's not really the case. You still keep a record. It's just you put a setting on your database to say let's not hound them, because otherwise you might get that data again and buy it in third party and breach that request for blocking communications.
Well, you've got the right to know exactly where your data is, who views it, and where it's kept. You've got the right to have it deleted, but it's not as simple as sending an email, please delete my data. It's a lot more complex than that. And by the time you do that, you don't know where that data's been shared with. Like you say, we were business development, we were on the phone, we were sending emails, etc. And somebody would email in and say, remove my information. Well, we never remove the information. We just tick the box that says do not market.
Yeah, because otherwise you might end up buying it again, buying that data elsewhere from third parties, and then re-sending information, and then the person's going to get annoyed anyway. So you still need to keep a record of sorts. Operationally, it makes sense. But people think that the data is being deleted. Well, that's what happened with Ashley Madison in 2015. And the hackers got access to it, and it put 37 million users at risk. Now imagine the blackmail content,
Oh,
all the leverage, people that were having affairs, that were married. Some people would be like, well, yeah, good. They shouldn't have done that anyway. That's not the point. That's not the point, right? We're not here to govern morality. We're here to ensure that from a business perspective, 'cause this is a business podcast, we're not unnecessarily exposing people to risk. And like you said, Andrew, imagine powerful people that might be using these services. If there's going to be someone in the government that watches corn, and it might not be corn content that they're very proud of. Or it could be that they're in a department that doesn't align well for those that are, like
yep,
corn products, right? If
yep,
if they like
yep.
to eat corn and it doesn't go well with with their profile, then already a hacker's got leverage. Imagine what you could do.
It's like, imagine it's like the corn version of the Minister for Housing not paying stamp duty.
Yes, there you go. Right. So even on the face of that, you think, okay, the sentiment's good, but the execution creates really big risks. And then the question we need to ask ourselves is, what's the risk and reward element of this, right? Okay, so now as a country, we're talking about digital ID. How people are going to have applications on their mobile to go out there and work. How could that possibly be of risk? Well, you think about people that may be working for companies that aren't necessarily socially favored. Right now, there is a lot of controversy around the Gaza-Israel conflict. I'm not
Correct.
gonna I'm not gonna put my line in the sand and say what's right or wrong, whatever. We'll leave that to the audience. But there are people that are actively boycotting or are losing social favorability or have an impact on their image, whether they're supporting Gaza in this situation or Israel. The point is this: imagine if such data was to be leaked to say, well, you work for an Israeli company.
Yeah.
That could be negatively impact you, or vice versa. You work for an organization like Al Jazeera or a pro-Palestine position company, and then now that's also affecting your standing in other social groups. You can see how this starts to get slightly messy. And the question we need to ask ourselves is, why does our government ID need to keep a track of where we're going and where we've been from a work perspective and also a travel perspective? Do we really want that digitally recorded when we have alternatives like physical ID cards that
Yeah.
still carry out the task? I mean, in Colombia, I've got dual nationality. In Colombia, we have ID cards, and you
Same in
present that.
Turkey. Same in Turkey. You've got your ID card. You've got a special number on it. You can't do anything without it. You can't even withdraw money out the bank, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when you go into a bank in Turkey, you get your ID card, you put it in the machine, and it records your name, and then gives you a ticket to go and go and sit down and do your banking, whatever. You can't buy a car. You can't buy a house. You can't even get a mobile phone without an ID card. But it's a physical card.
And it
Yeah.
doesn't have a ledger of where you've been or where you're going or anything like that. Because let's be honest, okay? If it's digital and it's recorded and it's data that's recorded, it's going to get leaked sooner or later. Governments,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
private organizations, all that type of stuff. So look, Andrew, today on the news, I come across this article and it's really, really getting on my nerves because it's so obvious. Discord, Andrew, is a
Oh,
very,
yes.
very popular app.
Yep.
It's a communication app, very popular amongst gamers,
Yep.
developers,
Yep.
all sorts, right? Because it's got all these private servers that allow you to kind of set community groups and whatnot. The ID photos, Andrew, of 70,000 users are at risk of being leaked. Why? Discord's got 200 million users. But for those of our viewers that aren't necessarily exposed to the tech sector, when you're a technology company, you will focus all of your technology resources in developing your main product. And sometimes you have this decision when you say, well, we need security features. Do we build them ourselves or do we buy them from third parties? So a lot of these organizations, they're like, we don't have the in-house expertise to build these ID verification systems because it's not just a matter of building the functionality. It has to be compliant with government standards, all sorts of stuff, right? And really, you just want to stick to the experts. So these big companies are sometimes relying on smaller companies and using their software as the ID verification. And that's what's happened here. The platform, it says here, the platform, which has more than 200 million users worldwide, says hackers had targeted a firm that helped them verify the age of its users. This firm done a bit of research. It's called Veritad. Veritad.
Okay. Veritad.
So it's not a huge software company, right? But it's definitely one of these leaders in the ID verification space. And this is basically the layer on which they've been hacked. Look at the companies that they secure, Andrew. We're talking T-Mobile, North Point Bank, TaxSlayer, Wire. I mean, I don't know why, but all of these organized, Philip Morris, which I believe they do cigarettes and all sorts of.
Cigarette company. Yeah. One
Yeah.
of the largest in the world.
So it's like Epic Games, these are all the companies that are potentially exposed due to this security failure. And you say to yourself, here are the first signs that surely people should be saying, or not people, governments should be saying, you know what? It might not be a good idea to have this type of data linked to a digital activity. Because no, now it's saying the following. There's no full credit card details or passwords or messages and activities beyond the Discord's customer support agents that were leaked. So all the customer support conversations is what was actually the main target. But you can imagine there could be all sorts of very, very...
Well, when you're in customer support, right? So you're in customer support and you've got an issue. Okay, what's your ID? What machine are you using? Where are you based? Is it a mobile, etc.? You've got a whole heap of information that's highly valuable there and then. It doesn't always have to be personal information.
Definitely.
The thing that sort of gets me at the moment, especially in the last 6 months or so, and particularly with the job that I used to have, is that hackers now know, right, that they cannot get into these huge organizations, right? Because these huge organizations have got really robust systems in place because they can afford to have these systems in place. However, as you said, Mincy, they do not have the expertise to do everything. And
No.
they go to these smaller companies, right, who specialize in a certain thing, and they're the ones that then, the company you mentioned earlier, 11 to 50 people, right? That's all there is in there.
Wow.
You
Oh,
know,
you looked it up,
yeah,
yeah?
I looked
Oh,
it up
fair.
on LinkedIn. 11 to 50 people. Half of them are sales, sales support, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. Then you've got some developers, blah, blah. They know to look at the supply chain. Where are
Definitely.
they getting their services? Who should
Definitely.
we attack?
The Jaguar attack recently, it was
Exactly.
revealed it was via the software supply chain that they were
Exactly.
hacked. Took them
Yeah.
down for about a month or two.
Yep.
So, and this is the thing. I mean, there's layers to this. There's not just that element. And this is not to say that we shouldn't trust small companies because, well, everyone's vulnerable, whether it's big or
Of
small.
course, yeah.
It's not
Of
necessarily
course.
picking. But again, over retention of age verification data has predictable result in the Discord breach. Again, they held onto that data for too long. They tell you on the website, give me your photo, we're going to verify your age, and then it's
And then
deleted.
delete it. Yeah.
No,
It's
it's
lies.
obviously not the case.
No.
It's a lie. It's a
Yeah.
lie, because otherwise that data wouldn't have been there readily
But
available.
Mincy, it makes sense though, because these people are going to get audited. How are they going to prove that they've allowed the right people in without retaining some of the information?
This is my point. So we haven't even got this basic age verification thing right. And now we're ready to roll out a government digital ID across the whole of the UK. What is going on, Andrew? Do we not care about our citizens? This
No.
hasn't been stress test enough. And
No,
you know what? It will never be secure. It will never be secure because security is always ahead of the technology curve. We've worked in we've actually got gravitas in this area. It's not doable. It's not doable. When will we learn our lessons? And this is only going to be weaponized against UK citizens.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
and that's what, and that's why this one in particular for me is the one that really geared me out. You know, the corn sites, the fact that the corn industry is requesting this, imagine the wealth of data they have now on
Yep.
people's preferences.
Yep.
With the ID, there's
Yep.
got to be some important people in there. There's got to be some
Absolutely.
important people in there. And the weaponization of that data, I don't even want to imagine,
Yeah.
right, how that could compromise security across the board.
National security.
National security. For what trade-off? I
Yeah.
don't understand. I
No.
really don't. I understand we want to protect the children, but children are going to bypass it anyway. They're
Yeah.
just going to.
Yeah.
And
It's everywhere anyway. It's on normal television, for God's sake. Some of it is on normal TV. You watch some of these films, some of them are, half as explicit as the corn sites anyway. But for me, what's scary is that, if we implement this national ID, they're going to know your travel habits, your work habits, your buying habits, your driving habits, your whatever habits you've got. And then all of a sudden, hang on a second, Mr. Blogs, you claim that you only earned 50 grand last year, but you've just bought this and you've just bought that and you've been here, and it just doesn't stop.
It's just bad. And also the false allegations. Andrew, 3 episodes back, I did one covering the use of AI, the use of face verification for thieves
Yeah,
in supermarkets, and we
supermarkets.
saw, and we were looking at a few cases where people were accused falsely of,
Yeah,
of shoplifting,
yeah.
and that's another site that says we only record if you trigger the theft mechanism. Can we trust it? What government body is going there and doing the audits to all of these companies and saying, "Show me that you don't have that data"? It's nonsense. And like you said, how do you audit that?
Yeah.
Something's not making sense here, and it's a shame that sorry, Andrew.
No, so the reasoning behind it, from what I've heard on the radio, and I hear Starmer and all these other people, oh, it's so difficult to make sure that people that are applying for jobs are entitled to work. There's 7 different ways of verifying somebody's entitlement to work, etc. Listen, national insurance card. That's what we used to have. Yeah, if you're entitled to work, you've got a national insurance card. You just show it to them. Done.
Andrew, if there's one thing that we can now, and I feel very silly with some of the thoughts I had last year because I was, defending some of Trump's positions on illegal immigration and whatnot. If there's one thing we've learned is that illegals, whether it's any form of illicit behavior, they're not on the radar anyway.
Anyway,
They are
exactly.
masters at evading. So putting mechanisms in place, like, do you think illegals are using national insurance numbers anyway? They figure out creative ways of getting money. All it's going to do is push them more into the drug trade, push them more into direct business. All this is going to do is add an extra layer of complexity to people that are legally working. That's it. That's it.
Exactly.
This is not going to make illicit immigration lower, anything like that. They come without passports anyway, and they're still getting it over the line. This is not the answer. So really and truly, it's being peddled that way, but it's for something else. It's got nothing
Absolutely.
with
It's
law
absolutely.
or on a legal activity. It's there for more monitoring. But what I don't understand is why are we picking up this data when we have thousands of signs that most of the organizations are not capable of securing this data. They're just not. They're just not. The security budgets do not match innovation budgets.
No, no, and we know that. We know that. As you said, we've been in this industry for what, 10 years now, selling cybersecurity products of all different types. Yeah. And they've never got the budget. They've never got the budget. And if they do have the
For
budget,
every tenner they invest in the business,
yeah,
probably about 10p
MP.
goes towards securing it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's less
Exactly.
than 1% of the whole
Yeah.
company's operation. Yet you want to have real sensitive data. I don't understand. It's a shame that the majority of people haven't worked in IT and understood just how bad this really is. And
Well,
I
just
don't, I
just
don't
to give just to give an idea, when we worked in this software security industry, the way that software being developed changed from people sitting there writing code to people just picking third-party applications or bits of code from anywhere around the world. It's free. It's just out there. Oh, we'll take a bit of that. Yeah, we don't know where it's from. Yeah, we'll take a bit of that and we'll take a bit of that, and that'll save us writing it all from scratch. Now you've got, that compared with AI writing code, etc., etc. Yeah, and it's all dependent on getting that application, that software out onto the market, generating revenue. Security has always been the second thought. Always been, in our experience, always been that, right? And it's only when somebody gets hacked that all of a sudden they all jump up and say, oh, blah, blah, blah. And then now we're going from, well, as a big company, you're securing your stuff, but what about your supply chain? How do you check those? Jaguar, Marks and Spencers, the company you just mentioned now, etc., etc. They're buying specialist things from specialist companies, again, whose main focus is to generate revenue, not secure customers. And what happens? All of a sudden we've got how many people in the UK? 80 million? 70 million? I don't know, right? All of a sudden, all of our data is in the cloud somewhere, yeah, being shared with employers, with this, with that, with the other, etc., etc.
Distributed amongst all of these ID verification companies that are trying to get a
Yeah.
slice of the pie. It's just a mess. It's a mess. It's a mess. It's a mess. I hate it. I really hope somehow we wake up to this. There's going to be more problems. We'll be talking about this for a year. In
100%.
fact, we're going to be richer off this because there's going to be so much of this going. And this is now going to become a real segment in this podcast because this is only going to get worse. And we're here for the smoke. Yeah. Audience, comment, like, tell us if we're wrong. We know we're not wrong. So this is actually one of those subjects where we know we're not wrong. But regardless, share your thoughts.
As I say, I don't see what the problem is. Is you knock on somebody's door and you go, right, I'd like to apply for this job, please. Are you allowed to work in the UK? Yes, here's my national insurance number in my card.
It worked to chart before. It worked to chart before.
Yeah.
That's it. Anyway,
yeah.
We'll conclude it there. Thank you, everyone. Please like, please share, subscribe to the channel. Come on, support. We've been at this for a year now. Let's bump up these likes. Cheers.
Thanks.